Welcome to Jesus Time, where we spend time with Jesus in his time and culture. Today's topic is the conclusion of the outline of Israel in Jesus' time. During the time of Jesus, Roman, Greek, and Jewish were the three great influences upon the Roman Empire. For the Roman, life was all about glory and honor and might over their enemies. For the Greeks, it was all about intellectual and reasoning. And at this time, pagan religions flourished. However, public opinion was that if any religion was real, it was Judaism. The short version of why the entire world assumed that if any religion was true, it was Jehovah God in Israel, was because of the history of what happened in Egypt, which had now become legend, as to Moses and the 10 plagues upon Pharaoh. Also, every culture on earth at this time had a flood legend, which you can relate to Noah in the Bible. However, the main reason was the prophecy of the Bible. You see, the scriptures accurately predicted the Assyrians, and then the rise of Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon, and even down to the detail of how long the Israelites would be captive in Babylon. 70 years to be precise. Along with the Babylonian prophecy, the scriptures detailed who would eventually destroy them. And of course, that was the Medo-Persian Empire. The Bible, accurately 150 years before his birth, named King Cyrus specifically. Alexander the Great was also predicted as the Greeks followed the Persian Empire. Alexander was so enamored with the prophecies of himself in the Bible that when he too conquered Israel, he did not sack it. In fact, he went into Jerusalem to the temple and made a sacrifice to God. From the age of 25 to 33, on horseback, Alexander captured the civilized world. Town by town, village by village, kingdom by kingdom. What I'm getting to is this. As Alexander's army was conquering China, they had had enough. They wanted to return home, while Alexander had made Babylon the capital of his new Greek empire. Not only did Alexander return to Babylon, he returned to a region known as Susa. Susa was where Daniel resided when he recorded all the prophecies, particularly chapters 9 through 12. Alexander returned there to die, because he knew the scripture said he would die young. And that's exactly what happened. He was riddled with venereal disease, and he drank himself to death. Even Alexander the Great's death fulfilled Bible prophecy, for it said he would die at an early age and leave no proper successor, that his kingdom would be divided into 4 regions, and this is exactly what happened. And of course, in time, the Romans rose to prominence, and many in the Roman Empire had taken notice that the Bible had predicted them as well. In fact, Daniel chapter 11 contains dozens of predictions, all of which have come true, with only 2 remaining left. These be in our future the rise of the Antichrist and a revived Roman Empire through a centralized one-world religion, and of course the return of Jesus Christ to vanquish and destroy him and to set up God's kingdom. But so detailed were these prophecies of the scriptures that even today, in every generation, someone sets out to disprove Daniel 11 by saying that it had to have been written after the fact because it is so accurate. And every single time, the person who sets out to do this converts and becomes a Christian when they learn there is so much evidence for the prophecy. But that, in a nutshell, is a reason why, during the time of the Roman Empire, if any religion was accepted as real, it was Judaism and Jehovah God, because of the verifiable accuracy of the predictions of Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon, Cyrus and the Medo-Persians, Alexander the Great and the Greeks, and finally Rome. And for this reason, there were Jewish synagogues throughout the pagan Roman Empire. The Jewish people themselves at Jesus' time were divided into 2 classes, Jerusalem and Babylonian. This is because when Babylon captured Israel, Nebuchadnezzar took for himself what would be considered the better people of Israel back to Babylon to serve within his kingdom, meaning that the surviving common Jews were left in the land of Israel to work the fields for Babylon. So in Jesus' time, Jews of Babylonian descendancy considered themselves to be superior over the families that actually remained in Jerusalem and Israel during their Babylonian captivity. And of course, genealogical and birth records were kept meticulously in the temple. The high priest was the top aristocratic priest, and this goes all the way back to the days of Moses, in which Aaron, Moses' brother, was declared the first high priest. Now, when Herod the Great was installed as governor of Israel by the Roman Senate, he had the correct high priest during his time murdered and installed one of his own. And after this, for nearly 100 years, 4 families bought this position amongst themselves. They literally bid for this position, which became a license to steal. Sanhedrin were the courts. Each town had a local court, and most of its members were scribes, Pharisees, or Sadducees. Today we would call the Jerusalem Sanhedrin the Supreme Court. It had the final say on all law. To be a member of this court, one had to memorize the entire Torah. The Samaritans are half Jew and Gentile. Their territory was north of Jerusalem and in between Galilee. So reviled and hated by all of Israel, many Jews walked miles around it in modern Jordan in order to traverse between Galilee and Judea. This hatred dates all the way back to even before Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon, to the wars of Assyria, in which the northern kingdom of Israel fell to the Assyrians before Nebuchadnezzar took Israel as a whole. What I'm getting to here is, Samaria was Jewish, but during this time, the Assyrian Empire dumped all of its criminals and non-desirables into Samaria. And thusly a Jewish society, which is all about purity of its ethnic line, garnered an everlasting disdain for Samaria. A common game that the Samaritan children played at the time of Jesus was, they would often try to touch or tag a Jew crossing through their territory in order to defile them, who was in a hurry and crossed directly through Samaria instead of walking around, either on their way to Jerusalem to temple or to Galilee for business. And these are the details of the culture in the time of Jesus.